My name is Melinda Goodman. Just turned 60 years old. How I identify? Well, because politically I identify as a lesbian, but I really feel like that human identity is a lot deeper than all that stuff. But if I have to fill out a form or something, I put down lesbian, um, that kind of thing. Um, but I'm also Pisces. I'm a teacher. I'm a poet. Um, there's a lot of things, but it depends on what I'm dealing with. Um, well, it was confusing because I felt like um, it was definitely clear what the expectations of little girls, for little girls, was, which was to grow up and marry a man and and when I was coming up, they were like really pushing this housewife thing, and it didn't look very exciting to me. Um, so I felt it was alienating being a I really think that I was, we called it tomboys back then, but I felt like I just was kind of pushing against the expectations of my society, and it would have been okay, except there's kind of a lot of um, hostility toward anybody that seems to be different. So I had to deal with that. I didn't like wearing some of the clothes I had to wear. I couldn't relate to it. It didn't feel like it fit what I felt like I was what I wanted to wear and what I wanted to look like. So I felt myself kind of walking around feeling like I was um, in a costume some of the time. Well, there were a lot of major turning points. One was being molested when I was very young. Um, that was that was very talk about alienation. That it was made me feel ashamed and scared, scared of strangers, and um, you know, I was, I guess, and then dealing with men doing strange things in the street kind of, made me feel scared of men. Um, but I wasn't really in touch with all those feelings. It wasn't until I was, you know, pretty old that I realized the effect that some of that stuff had on me. Um, and then, then finally having, and well, I mean, I had a lot of strange experiences, but I was also, I had an adult lover when I was only 13, and that was very disturbing because I really wasn't um, emotionally, psychically, physically in any position to be able to handle that kind of thing. And it was a woman, so um, there was that added stigma and fear attached to it. And um, so I've spent a lot of time in therapy, getting in touch with different things that happened to me in my life. But I also came from a family where I didn't, the kids probably didn't get enough attention, so I was very ripe for that kind of person to come along because I was so needy, emotionally needy. So it was kind of a whole trick bag, but it was also confusing because I had a lot of political consciousness. I knew about, you know, I was already well aware of the women's movement and what homophobia was about and things like that, even though it was only the 70s. I knew there was a lot of oppression in society, and I had grown up as a child of civil rights workers, so people who were involved in political struggle. So it was confusing because all the rhetoric sounded correct, but the behavior wasn't. Well, it's definitely different than it was. It's very different now, but um, I, I think there's still a lot of stigma, and I think that I still suffer from having grown up at the time that I grew up, where it was such a it was like being if you were treated if you were outed, which I was outed. Um, it was like being called a child molester to be a lesbian. Um, and so it was, and a lot of us got into drugs and alcohol and stuff, a lot of gays and lesbian kids that I hung out with. And then, some of us died from, AIDS. And, so in a lot of ways, I feel like I still have PTSD, having, come up the way that I did. But I also feel proud that we kind of, plowed the way for a lot of young people coming up, that they don't have to go through a lot of what we went through. But the struggle is long from over, and a lot of the victories are very tenuous. There was a lot of focus on marriage as being like that was going to be like the big liberation thing. And it's really, we had our own marriages anyway. It's not like that it really changed that much. That didn't change our lives that much. Except it's nice to be able to, if you have a job and you get benefits, you can give it to your partner and things like that. And I wasn't married to my partner, who died a couple of years ago, and I was treated like garbage by the family. It was very painful. Their homophobia came out very strong, and I had a very hard time dealing with going through her coma. She was in a coma. I had to get the nurses to be an advocate for me so that I could be at her bedside. And then I wasn't allowed to have anything to do with plans for the funeral or what she was going to wear. And she'd been my partner for 15 years. In fact, we had even been high school sweethearts at one point. Um, I was glad. I wasn't as ecstatic as a lot of other people, but also because it was going to complicate things. It was like we had um, you know, so, but I just felt, as a matter of principle, I was glad that it had happened. But even if I had been straight all these years, I'm not necessarily sure I would have been married. I don't think that marriage is the end all and be all of relationships, but it's nice to have the option. And it's a human right to be able to marry whoever, another consenting adult. That we're hypersexual, like, oh, she's a lesbian, she's gonna, oh, she might do something to me, or that we really want to be men, or that we really, or if we're femmes, that we're weird because if we're femmes that want to be with butches, so-called butches, we're weird because if you want to be with a man, why don't you be with a man? All this kind of weird stuff. But being I think there's a million different, there's as many ways of being a lesbian as there are ways of being any other thing. It's like, it's a very individual thing. People like to stereotype everybody, you know, and put people in, pigeonhole everybody. I make a point of being out to my students and people who know me because I feel like I'm a good person and people should know who the lesbians in their lives are so that it's not just, you know, it goes against type or stereotypes and this kind of thing. Um, this poem is called Just How Crazy Brenda Is, and this is about my partner who died in 2014, but this is about when we were teenagers. Just how crazy Brenda is. When we were teenagers, you asked me, had I ever done this before? And I said no. Parking my mother's Chevy station wagon at the curb, meeting one of your little brothers, nicknamed Rooster, hanging off the porch rail. Brenda upstairs, he says, but I stop first by the kitchen to say hi to your moms, who is always so friendly and treats us each special like the stars we want to be. I see Gilligan's Island, your mother's calendar on the wall from Nesbitt's funeral parlor, where she had the numbers that came out each day penciled into every square of the month. Hey, Bren, at 19 you are supporting the entire household with your job at Midlantic Bank. I walk up the dark wood staircase. You meet me on the landing halfway. We are both wearing bell-bottoms with wraparound sweaters and hoods and knitted belts. I have one of my mother's polka-dotted scarves tied around my neck like a choker. Your hair smells sweet. Neither of us can wait to get upstairs. On the wall in your room is a Day-Glo poster. Your bookshelf is filled with paperback novels and textbooks from high school. You close the door and open a bottle of strawberry Annie Green Springs. You light some vanilla incense. Want to smoke a joint, you ask, already emptying out a plastic baggie full of mustard yellow-brown reefer. This is the gold, you tell me, sprinkling a trail like gunpowder into a creased sheet of easy wider, eyes looking over your fingers at me as you roll, lick the gummed edge, quick twirl between your soft, dark lips. We hear one of your sisters, Valerie, climbing up the stairs from school in her platform shoes, and another sister giggling in the living room downstairs with her boyfriend. You twist the ends tight with the tips of your fingers, reaching for a Midlantic Bank matchbook. You strike the back cover, then jump up fast, snatching open the door to the hall. Your little brothers scatter, running scared down the stairs to the kitchen. Ma, Ma, you call over the banister. Keep Rooster and Chicken downstairs with you. Because they're bothering me, that's why. I hear your mother telling them to leave those girls alone. I swear to God, you say, closing the door again. They can really get on my nerves sometimes. Lying back on the old creaky, springy double bed. I'm going to get my own place soon, you tell me. I lean toward you with the joint in my hand, smoke leaking out my eyes and nose, squinting. Where's the roach clip, you ask, looking around the room. I look around too. Never mind, you say softly. Give me a kiss. I feel your lips closing around mine, and it feels so good. An eager tangle of teenage tongues. So good it makes us laugh. I lied to you, Brenda. You were not my first woman lover, just the first lover who ever loved me back.